So I've had some people comment and say they've really enjoyed my cover of To the Music and learned a lot from my BINKlooper video. So this is a video about my process for covering that song and how I used BINKlooper to help me in my performance. I want to say before I explain my whole process or whatever, that I finished this cover almost a year ago. So I've learned a lot about Ableton Live and using the BINKlooper and audio engineering stuff since I posted my cover. I'll try to highlight things that I've learned and details I missed in the cover as I explain my process. Okay, so when I started this process, I wasn't very familiar with Ableton Live or with BINKlooper, and I was hoping to find a song to cover that I could use to get more comfortable with my new DAW. For this project and for a bunch of other cover projects, I like to cover a song as close as I can to the original. Let me tell you why. Picking apart other songwriters' arrangements is a fun way to learn about arrangement and orchestration, to figure out why you like certain songs more than others. This also helps me learn a lot about audio engineering and using all the plugins and effects in my DAW, and to learn about how producers use these effects to give their songs their own unique character and sound. And you can use these things you learn about arranging and orchestration and audio engineering in your own songwriting. I wanted to cover a KAYTRANADA song because I was listening to Bubba on repeat for a while after it came out. The whole album is amazing, all the songs are fun and interesting in their own way, and I would have been happy to try to perform any of them. Some of them are a little outside my comfort zone, like I don't think I would do a great job rapping, and some of the melodic vocal stuff is way out of my range. So that helped eliminate some of the songs. When I was trying to decide which song to cover, I'd go on a walk and try to pick apart the different instruments and layers of each song. The timing of when different elements are present or absent from a section, the length of musical phrases that repeat, and even where elements in the mix are placed in the stereo field. Since my goal was to loop the whole song from scratch without any pre-written MIDI data or pre-recorded vocal audio, I searched for a song that built up from simple to complex with staggered instrument entrances. And I wanted to avoid a song that started with a full instrumentation right from the start, or something with a lot of different sections with different chords and harmonies. To the Music fits this description best because the whole song is built on the same 4-bar chord pattern, and most of the instruments enter one by one from the beginning. I can't play the track to listen along and point out exactly where elements enter, but I'll talk you through it. The song starts with a 4-bar fade-in with 5 percussion elements: hi-hats, claps, snare, some high short cymbal sounds, and what I'm calling a high tom. There's a super panned noise sweep thing that starts in the middle of the 4th bar before the pan fluty keyboard counter melody comes in at bar 5. The kick comes in just before the main chords enter in bar 9. The kick cuts out for almost 2 bars right before the vocals enter to start the first verse. In my version, I didn't include any background vocals, but it wasn't because I didn't try. I wasn't sure how I could get them in my setup with the gear I had at the time, and I didn't think it was a good decision for my performance to trigger vocal samples. Maybe I was just self-conscious, but I didn't want to cast any doubt on my lead vocal performance. The bass line comes in halfway through the first verse. Some high string and synth chords happen during the chorus, and a vocal counter melody enters, otherwise the instrumentation is the same. I only sing the vocal line towards the end when I'm out of lyrics. Everything cuts out to give room for the vocals before the second verse, then we're back to the original orchestration for the first verse. There's another cut for vocal space in the middle of the second chorus, just to highlight that one line for impact. Another keyboard counter melody shows up right at the end of the double chorus. After the first chorus, different instruments are cut out. There's no bass in the second chorus, no high strings after the second chorus. When the bass line re-enters, the main chords cut out, along with the snares and claps, and at the very end we lose the vocals, then the bass, then the last few percussion instruments before the Thundercat break. Once you've figured out all the different musical elements mapped out in musical time, you'll need to figure out 2 things about each element. Can I loop this? Does the musical pattern repeat in any discernible way? And how long is the loop? Since the song starts with the percussion parts, let's figure those out first. The hi-hat loop is sort of tough to pick out, but I think it's 4 bars, because the first bar is different from the second bar, but the third and the fourth are just the same as the first. The high short cymbal sounds only happen every 4 bars. The snare and kick are both 1-bar loops. The high tom loops every 2 bars. and the claps happen on 2 and 4, but since there's really just a clap every other beat, you could write a 2-beat loop. The other elements of the song that loop, like the bass, the main chords, the counter melodies, and the high strings, are all 4 measures because the harmony of the song follows a 4-measure loop. The vocals don't loop, so I have to perform those live. You could figure out a way to trigger vocal samples if you want, but I don't mind singing. It's also helpful to think about how many programmed events you want to happen in each scene, or how much of the song you want to happen at once. In my cover, I have one place in the song form where I need to press a button to start a new batch of automation. I allowed myself time for my active loops to vamp or just keep looping before the main chords enter, in case I need more time to switch mallets or get ready to sing. At the minimum, I like to give each section of the song its own scene so that it's easy for me to troubleshoot something that happens in the middle or the end of the song. You can progress through scenes with follow actions, either on individual clips or on scenes themselves. Okay, now that we've talked about all of that, I'm going to walk you through my Ableton Live project file so that I can explain all the automation that I set up and my logic behind all the timing and decisions that I made in this file. The first set of musical material I chose to record and loop all at once included all of the drum sounds and the first melody that enters. I tried to follow the original song as close as I could, which meant I needed to record a lot of drum instruments as quickly as possible. When I start the first scene, global time starts, and red REC or rec clips containing a bunch of BINKlooper programming all begin together. From the very beginning, hi-hat and clap tracks are record-armed, and the BINKlooper is set to begin recording input in measure 2. The song begins in earnest, like the actual audio of the song starts in measure 2, and while input is being recorded, the snare track is record-armed and its looper is launched. In measure 3, the recorded clap material begins looping, the hi-hat track continues recording, MIDI for the snare track is recorded, and the EFX track is record-armed and its looper is launched. In measure 4, the snare loop begins playback, the EFX and hi-hat tracks record for 2 bars, and the opening melody is record-armed and its looper is launched. By measure 6, all the initial percussion is recorded and looping so that I can move to the mallet station to record the opening melody while the looper is launched for the kick. In measure 10, the opening melody starts looping, the kick is recorded, and the looper for the tom is launched. In measure 11, the kick starts looping and the looper records the MIDI for the tom. By measure 12, everything we've looped should be looping. A lot of programming and looping can be packed into 12 bars. But what happened to the kick? Listening back to the song, the kick comes in around the same time as the main chords, but I knew that I wasn't going to be able to play both instruments at the same time. So I figured out a workaround. I recorded the kick whenever I had time before the main chords come in, for me in measure 10. And then, using a dummy clip on my audio track for the kick instrument, I automated the track volume all the way down. This way, the MIDI could still be recorded and looped in the MIDI track, but the MIDI sent through the audio track wouldn't be played back as anything audible. You could do the same thing, but automate the speaker off if you wanted to. You could also automate all sorts of effects into dummy clips in audio tracks, but I've been using this technique a lot to record loops in advance before I actually want to hear them. It's really useful if you want multiple instruments or elements in your song to join in at the same time, but you don't really have the physical capability to play them all in real time. When I trigger the next scene, I'm exiting a brief period of open time where my loops that I've already recorded can continue as long as I want them to. And I'm beginning a row of clips containing automation that will get me through the rest of the scenes and the rest of the song. When I trigger the scene, red rec clips are launched, and loopers are launched to record the main chords, then the whirly bass 4 bars later, and then the real bass 4 bars after that. I use the same technique that I used for the kick to record the bass, but keep it silent until the first verse begins. MIDI tracks with material actively looping just have empty spaces instead of clips to allow the active clips to keep looping when I trigger a new scene. Instruments that come in later, like the BGV Whoa track or the high synth pad track, have clips which only contain follow actions, sending the track through the song form with the rest of the instruments. and a few sections and scenes and a few follow actions will arrive at a red rec clip, which will launch the track's looper at the correct time. In a few places, right before the first and second verses, and in the middle of the second chorus, some clips and audio tracks contain volume automation so that instruments cut out for just a moment to feature the vocals. It's exciting to control how MIDI information is performed by your digital instrument or modulated through effects through dummy clips. This function of Ableton Live allows performers to mix and expand their creativity in a real-time, improvisatory way, or it can allow performers control over long sections of musical time through automation in advance. If you'd like to explore the project file on your own, there's a link in the description of this video to download that file. You'll be able to move around in the project file to dig into automation and clips in Session View, and check out how the arrangement that I recorded from Session View matches the output in Arrangement View. I'm using a few third-party plugins, but they're mostly reverb and compression, so you should still be able to understand the important concepts from this video. If you have any questions about anything I've talked about in the video, please leave a comment or feel free to reach out directly. Check out the BINKbeats live setup video on the Ableton YouTube channel if you haven't already. Almost everything I know about BINKlooper came from watching that video and then exploring on my own. And I haven't been using BINKlooper very much these days. I'm sure you're probably already aware of Live's extreme versatility and how easy it is to explore new genres or styles of production. These days I've been making music using Live's stock MIDI effects to make procedural generative music, and that's been really fulfilling for a lot of reasons. I put out an album, I'll link to that in the description, and I'm hoping to make a video explaining the basics of my new process soon, so stay tuned. And thanks for watching.